Hi everybody, I'm here at a restaurant. It's been a bad week that only got worse when I remembered I don't have any food at home. And my roommate's out of town on their yearly visit back home, so I'm here trying to get some sort of social interaction going on and get some lovely food while I'm at it. But the service today is way slower than usual. So while I'm at it, let's talk about drug trafficking. I don't really trust children. They are inexperienced former chimps reliant on leeching upon their superiors at levels I'm shocked anyone puts up with. Like when I think about my own childhood, I ate cat food, won 6 fist fights, and played a lot of Wii games by myself because I was the kid who ate cat food and started fist fights. This was all in 2008. Now the most important thing we need to appreciate is the fact that kids don't possess any objective political power. I used to want more freedom as a youngin', but since I never got to, I hope no child is ever happy. I hope every child has to suffer like I did, especially when I see what could have been. See, the Trix Rabbit, no unique name, just the Trix Rabbit. He doesn't like carrots or rabbit food, just that fruity cereal. And due to this exposure to this bodily poison at a young age through something like growing up around bad influences, he has unfortunately concocted an addiction and specifically strives for additional chances to try tricks again, only to be hit with the line, "Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids." Now, if this was something like size 3 light-up Skechers or a harness, then yes, I would say it's for kids. But why is the rabbit not allowed to eat the thing that literally has his face plastered on it? If I reached a point where I was the face of a product, regardless of the product, I would at least like the option to eat my product. Throughout many of the commercials, however, the rabbit never earns the tricks. He'll disguise himself to convince the kiddos that he's a trusting figure who they should give this cereal to. And usually due to things like stranger danger or the rabbit fumbling right as he's about to attain his goal, the children find out and prevent him from having all the food and immediately eat it in front of him, taunting him, slathering him with the idea of disparage. It's insulting, both as a bystander and a former child. Now, I personally have no idea what it's like being a rabbit person, and I have no ill intent saying this, but it seems like rabbits in general have all developed an interest in tricks and disguising. A good example is when the Trix Rabbit teamed up with another iconic rabbit after the food that they like to eat, Bugs Bunny. And regarding Bugs, I'm not gonna lie, he's kind of a dick to the Trix Rabbit. He gets footage of the Trix Rabbit failing as he eats tricks of his own. Like, you aren't being mischievous to someone who deserves it. This is a distant relative of yours that you're choosing to be bad toward. Since 1959, we have seen the evolution of the Trix Rabbit right before our very eyes. He's been at this game for 60 years at this point, and the attitude he's possessed along with his approach toward getting tricks has evolved over time. So initially he would just sulk and watch, but I would say there was a level of chivalry, you know? Like, nobody was fighting. It didn't feel like there was a forceful stigma. It felt like all these kids would look at the rabbit and not let him eat because it was their cereal, and maybe they thought it would be bad for him to eat. And the rabbit wouldn't fight it. I think both parties were entirely justified in the ways that they acted. Now, decades later, his interest started growing upward, and eventually it reaches a peak. He stops feeling sorry for himself, instead choosing to start going through strategies and plans in order to make this tricks meal a reality. This is when we start seeing his incline toward more exaggerated and unpredictable plans as he truly goes upwards against the system, starting by going on a diet. Like, good for him. He's dropped an entire person in weight. I think this era helps to articulate the fact that the Trix Rabbit has been there since the start. As the children grow up and move from their silly, cereal-reliant lives, the rabbit stays there and watches as the cycle continues. He is stagnant upon the rivers of time as everything grows around him, as the tricks themselves see change. And despite it all, he still can't have a bowl of his own. And I mean, while we're at it, what does it mean to be a kid in this regard? Is it exclusively human children? If the rabbit was an objective child, would that count? What if you age slower? There's a commercial where a genie ignores the rabbit and eats the tricks. Now, genies are immortal, so why would the genie be allowed to eat it, even though he's most likely been alive for a lifetime's worth of time? Is it based on appearance then? What if a kid ages faster? If they reach puberty faster, is that a consequence? What is the factor that determines this? The Trix Rabbit, if for one reason or another, has actually gotten younger. So I mean, like, why is this fair? Just give him some cereal! The turn of the 21st century has been hard on the Trix Rabbit. His general interest of the brand actually starts to go downwards. He still makes outlandish attempts, but this time, it's really just him against the world. He signs up for a figure skating competition where the prize is tricks. He wins fairly, objectively earns the tricks, and still gets nothing. The rules were set from the start. This is ignorance of their own established rules of the event. You can't change the prize for the winner of the competition just because you don't like the winner of the competition who won fairly and earned their position. It's not right. Time and time again, it was wrong. It was never right, and it still isn't. As you can tell, it got to the point where the tricks enveloped him. Tricks would gain supernatural capabilities such as creating architecture out of Trix products in these strange pocket dimensions. Even then, still, nothing happened. I would argue that the rabbit got simultaneously closer and further to his goals at the same time, becoming hopeless by the end. The Trix Rabbit began to lose that flame. He would actually move on and start pursuing his other interests. It was like a bad relationship. He receives clarity and pursues what other things in life could be offered with other rabbit characters. For a time, he actually becomes an actor and also a musician. Other mascots he would meet in cereal rehab would actually all rent and buy a house together, and they would exist as roommates. And the gang, along with whatever the hell this thing's supposed to be, lived happily for a very long time. The years would keep going, the calendar would keep flipping, the earth would keep running its laps around the sun, and finally it seemed like the rabbit earned the closure that he deserved. Except, that's not what happened. The rabbit kept trying, kept going for it, and remained shackled by those horrible children and their $3 cereal. Easily the worst offender has to be when there was a rabbit-themed party. They don't give any to the rabbit. Just share any of this with the rabbit. There are so many commercials where they have an abundance of this shit. Not even one kid is kind enough to offer him a small bowl. Is there more to the story? Why does the rabbit give it all back so easily? Does he not realize he could just hold his arm up and the kids can't reach that high? No, he doesn't. It might just be a game to the rabbit to get the cereal for free through some antics, but I doubt it. I think greed is the enemy here. The children have mentally programmed the system that tricks are for kids, and as such are trying to maximize the amount of tricks they have. These are rules that the children revel in, but even then, it's not like this is a forbidden law. If anything, it could be treated like a shaming thing. But it's not illegal for adults to eat tricks unless the Trix Rabbit is having a legitimate problem because of a dependence and a withdrawal. Well, honestly, yeah, I could see that. But there has been times where the rabbit has actually been successful. Once he even managed to not only get a full bowl, but an entire, completely untouched box to himself. He takes the absolutely mind-boggling approach of not negotiating with miserable crayon-eating waste of oxygen with dry-ass lips and no future, and instead opted to go to a convenience store. He is ridiculed by the worker there, an elderly lady, but the warpath ways of childhood have left this woman, leaving her a kindred soul in front of the rabbit, knowing that adults don't belong to the cereal, but is blessed with wisdom, knowing that the time within this realm that we call life is limited, and to cherish life where possible, and not to judge other people for their choices in cereal. And he does it! He makes it back to his low-end apartment and begins to savor in the spoils of victory, only realizing that this bowl will not be an ideal bowl, as he has failed to get milk. And this was the moment among all others, where I realized it will never be enough. The Trix Rabbit could do everything right, and something will go wrong. His sole hope and only desire in life, never obtainable, yet something taken for granted by millions of children and people who oppose his ambitions because of a single phrase. He's being held together by a carrot on a stick, except that it isn't a carrot. He doesn't even like carrots, but you wouldn't know that because at some point you were a child and you were against the rabbit in hopes of getting his hands on some tricks. Sometimes it doesn't even matter who you are or what you do. Sometimes you'll fail and fail and fail and fail. And if it's because of the system, or if it's because of discrimination, or because you made a mistake, or simply because of who you are as a person, you will fail. You will be left unsatisfied, robbed, regretting, embittered, but you can't stop. It will be okay. You can't throw in the towel. You are flawed and you'll fall. You'll fall over and over and over again, but you have to keep going. You have to get back up. You have to try again. Even if it hurts, even if you're knocked down harder, you have to get back up. It's happened to me. It'll happen to you, and it's happened to everyone. You can do it. Your character isn't determined by the cards you're dealt with, but rather what you choose to do with them, because even the smallest of pebbles can grow into the greatest of mountains, and everyone can respect an underdog story, but nobody likes a quitter, and you might ridicule the Trix Rabbit for his seemingly endless loop of failings, but one day, as long as you keep going and choose to learn and evolve and grow, I promise you can get the cereal bowl that you've been working so hard to get your hands on, regardless of what your peers believe you are capable of possessing and the expectations of the modern world. Break the shackles of doubt and your success will be just around the corner. And as of writing this, we have proof of at least 2 recorded times where the rabbit attained his goals across decades, at least twice over a simple and noble goal. Only twice. And wouldn't you know it, neither of them were because of kids. It's an unfortunate reality. The children were not the ones responsible. He wins a race fairly, he earns the Trix as a trophy, and the staff hesitates to give the rabbit his prize, only agreeing after holding a vote. And he loves it. The Trix Rabbit has to quite literally bend the wills of democracy to get a chomp of his favorite food. It's just not right. But it's important. The Trix Rabbit, despite everything that the world has thrown at him, despite failure after failure, despite watching generations worth of elementary level children stripping his passion away as hard as possible, the Trix Rabbit is still there. He has found his place in the world, regardless if the world wanted him there or not, a victim of the system against him, and yet he still marches onward. It's a Shakespearean level of tragedy that few things, if any, can match his situation. But I suppose his patience was rewarded, as time tends to do. And with that being said, where the hell is the waiter?